please, don't let my horrible elderly face frighten you. Having run through the entirety of Bloodborne 26 times with all 26 right-handed weapons, I think it was about time for old Noah to make a proper tier list of all the right-handed weapons in Bloodborne. It is that time to finally reflect on all of my experiences, the good and the bad, mostly the bad, and think about where each weapon falls on this tier list, from S to Oh nah! Now this ranking is going to be based on multiple criteria. Can it be buffed? What's its moveset like? How much recovery does it have? How much damage output does it have? How well can it perform in multiple situations with kin, or beasts, or against vile bloods, or against NPCs? Starting with the Amygdalan Arm. Now, I think, of all places it could be, because we gotta think about this. Like, look. Its base club version can be, don't get me wrong, the Amygdalan Arm can actually be ridiculously strong as long as you farm for the proper nourishing gems to feed both the physical side of things and the arcane side of things. But it can't be buffed, and the regular club version, while useful and great against bosses, monsterized bosses anyway, it's not super good against things that are more your-sized. Its recovery isn't the best, the damage it can lay out actually isn't the best, and a lot of it's just a straight up and down slam. And don't get me wrong, that could still be useful, but it doesn't really limb break like that. So, like, most of the time you're going to want to have it in its tricked form, which is just better. It's got these wide sweeping attacks, it can build beast blood better, it lays down more damage, and that charge attack with the extra little squiggly wiggly swipe actually lays down a whole lot of damage. So, where I'm placing it right now, due to all that, is pretty much at the top of C. Beast Claw, that's a B. It doesn't deal the most damage in the world, but it is fast, it's stamina efficient, and its best part is that it's just a constant beast meter. You are constantly building beast blood. You don't have to use beast blood pellets at all. You're just constantly building beast blood as you continue to attack. And on top of that, it can be buffed. The amount of damage that it's putting out isn't the highest, and that's what's going to kind of hold it back from a higher level, especially since the damage it deals, admittedly, isn't the highest, and it doesn't have a whole lot of vertical movement. Everything's very horizontal the whole time, so you're gonna have a hard time hitting at anything higher than your forehead. But with the amount of damage it can do, the fact that it could be buffed, the fact that it's really, really cool when you scream with it, or when you jump up and slam down with it with that crazy ass beast move, it's a B. Beast Cutter, also a B. We're going to actually place that before Beast Claw. The amount of damage that the club version of the Beast Cutter is able to put out is actually insane. It's actually pretty swift. It's not the most efficient on stamina, but just the amount of damage that it puts out constantly. And it limb breaks very, very easily. Its transformed moveset actually isn't all that great. It's these great big sweeping attacks. And don't get me wrong, it's really, really good for CC, but you're most likely not going to be using it in a boss fight, simply because its recovery isn't great, and it just doesn't put out as much damage because it can't attack as often. Just the club version alone carries it up to a B, but the fact that don't get me wrong, the trick form is really, really cool, but it just doesn't perform like the other half of the weapon does. So, high B. Beasthunter Saif, that is an A. Its regular untransformed moveset isn't the greatest, but don't get me wrong, those hits are very, very meaty. But you're typically not going to be using the weapon for the untransformed mode. You're going to be using it for the transform mode where it looks a little more like the Saw Cleaver. 1, it's faster. 2, it's more stamina efficient. 3, the amount of damage that it puts out is just beautiful. It can be buffed, good beast blood, a lot of good forward movement, but at the same time, that forward movement could also be a bit of a detriment. It can be kind of hard to control sometimes, but if you can get through that, you get yourself a perfect weapon right there. Blade of Mercy. A lot of people might get angry with me about where I put the Blade of Mercy, depending on where I put the Blade of Mercy, of course, but don't get me wrong, I love the Blade of Mercy, it's really cool, it's really fast, but it's kind of being held back by the fact that, yeah, its extra arcade damage is great, don't get me wrong, but it's just not putting out as much damage as a lot of other split damage weapons are capable of doing. Doesn't matter how quickly it attacks, it's the sheer fact that it's just not putting out the kind of damage like that, and on top of not limb breaking very well, it can't be buffed. Super stamina efficient, but don't get me wrong, not a bad weapon. Not a bad weapon by any means, but it just doesn't perform as well as some of the other ones. So I'd say I'm going to put it in B above Beast Cutter. Bloodletter, really, really cool weapon. Don't get me wrong, it'd be really powerful, but that transform attack, while hitting pretty hard, it's It's not great. It forces you to frenzy yourself in order to use it, which almost makes it worthless. I don't get me wrong, it can hit multiple targets in a big old splash zone, but you can't use it any more than like once at a time. I mean, it is reduced frenzy. Instead of dealing the full 70 to you, it's only dealing 50%, but still, you're losing health just for bothering to attack. The base untransform moveset is good, pretty simple, deals decent enough damage. The transform moveset, really wide. You're gonna have a real easy time hitting stuff. But this, even with the 50 blood tinge and the 50 strength, I didn't find it doing as much damage as a lot of other weapons did during my runs. Still good. I'd say I'd put it. Oh, where would I put it? Just in my personal experiences, I'd say I'd put it just above the Beast Claw in the B tier. That's just because it did provide me a lot of good results, but just not as many results as the club version of the Beast Cutter or something. On top of the fact that again, it's doing blood damage, so it can't be buffed. So I think that's fair. Don't get me wrong, still a strong weapon, but there is quite a bit holding it back. The Boom Hammer. Nope. Look, the Boom Hammer with its wide sweeping attacks is good for things like NPCs. And don't get me wrong, it can lay down a lot of smackdown with the proper nourishing gems, but the fact that you have to put in that much work just to make a weapon at least somewhat good already drops it down a couple letter grades. In addition to the fact that, don't get me wrong, being able to trick it and then put fire on your next attack is cool, but it's not exactly the end all. It's only good for one smack at a time. And don't get me wrong, that big old explosion that it does when it's tricked out is cool, but it's not doing the numbers. In addition to it being almost impossible to limb break with it. It doesn't matter how many times you hit a monsterized enemy, the limb breaks are few and far between, so yeah, it's worth using, but I personally wouldn't put it any higher than a D. It's not great. The Burial Blade. I love this thing. I love it so much. Huge range, big damage, it can't be buffed, but who cares? It's another one of those partially arcane weapons, but unlike the Blade of Mercy, this thing's putting out big meaty damage. Don't get me wrong, the Blade of Mercy can attack very often, but it's just not putting out the kind of damage that something that the Burial Blade is doing. Its rally potential, unmatched. You're getting your rally back in just a couple of swings. It doesn't matter how much health you've lost. A couple swings later, you're topped off. I am slapping it right into A. Below Beasthunter Saif, because the Beasthunter Saif is capable of putting out more damage than this thing, but this thing rocks. Burial Blade is awesome. Chikage! How it performs depends entirely how you build it up. There are many different ways you could do it. You can go all in on the physical side of things, or you can go all in on the blood side of things because it has an S scaling and blood tinge, which actually might be the better of the two, depending on which version of the sword you're using. Either way, it's a monster. It's an absolute demon. Right into S tier. It's carrying your ass straight to the finish line whether you want it to or not. Yeah, while it's transformed, it slowly saps away at your health, and when you do those charge attacks, it really eats up a lot of health, but it is totally worth it. You get just a tiny bit of beast blood activation in there, you are ripping through things like nobody's business. Like a rock through wet toilet paper, this thing is a demon. The Church Pick. I have a lot of respect for this thing. It's got all the good points, strong, fast, stamina efficient, and it can be buffed. Its untransformed version is actually weird because it's a pick, you know, the whole point is, you know, jabbing stuff with it. But like, out of its entire untransformed moveset, only like one attack of the entire R1 string actually involves you stabbing with it. And its charge attack is an upward uppercut. But in its transformed attack, regardless of how it moves, it's all thrust damage. So this thing is a Kin's worst nightmare. And it performs really well against NPCs as well. Where would I place it? It lays down a crazy amount of smackdown. It doesn't perform like some of the higher weapons on this list that are gonna be on this list, but I'll put it in A, right below Burial Blade, just for how well it performs. The Holy Moonlight Sword. This thing is kind of weird. While in its untransformed version, it's not just the physical side of things that get applied. It's also the arcane that gets slapped on top of it. You wouldn't think so, but like this thing alone is capable of the highest AR in the game, bar none. The untransformed R1 string isn't anything to write home about, and the transformed version, don't get me wrong, it's really cool, and the amount of arcane damage that it's actually capable of laying out is really great. But this thing is amazing for one thing alone. the uncharged R2s. They're these big stabs that build beast blood like nothing else in the game, and they do an ungodly amount of damage. Nothing could survive. While in its transformed version, it's strong, but it just doesn't perform like some of the other weapons on the game. But just for the R2 alone, it's putting out way more damage than you think. If you can't get to the game with this thing, I don't know what to tell you. I'm putting it straight into A, right above Beasthunter Saif. Hunter's Axe.
Born by the Hunter's Axe, made men by the Hunter's Axe, undone by the Hunter's Axe.
In my personal opinion, it's the worst of the 3 starting weapons, but that isn't to say that it is a bad weapon, it just doesn't perform like its brothers. It's not as stamina efficient as its starter weapon siblings, but the amount of damage that it's capable of doing is just mwah. The untransformed version, it's just a quick swiping weapon that can be buffed, and it's, it does its job. But its true strength comes from its transformed version with that spin to win. The charge attacks alone can carry you through the entirety of the game. Does a great amount of damage, does a great amount of stun. It breaks limbs very easy, it can be buffed. It builds beast blood crazy good. There's pretty much nothing in this game that this weapon can't just spin to win against. So that's why I'm slapping it right into B, right above the Beast Cutter. Strong, performs well, but it doesn't perform quite as well as its brothers. The Kirkhammer. It's wonky, it's weird, but I love it. The Silver Sword is nothing to write home about. It's just a quick swiping sword, it stabs, it swipes, just whatever. It's decent enough against NPCs. Its true strength comes from the hammer version. But the hammer version is kind of weird. It offers an AoE to each one of its slams, so even if you're not actually hitting with the hammer, you're hitting with like the air pressure of the hammer. But in order to do full damage for the hammer, you gotta hit in the appropriate area. Even if you are hitting with the hammer, you gotta hit with the right spot in order to do full damage. It can be buffed. It is not stamina efficient at all, but it's strong. It deals if you manage to hit it right, it deals premium damage. Good beast blood buildup. It pancakes anything human shaped. Despite that, I can't give it any more than a C. I'm gonna put it above Amygdalan Arm. It's very, very close to a B, but it's not quite there yet. Kos Parasite. Moving on. Look, I can offer a bit of an explanation for it, but we all know this thing blows. It deals exclusively arcane damage. You can't buff it in any way, shape, or form. Don't get me wrong, that cruel explosion it has where you wrap your arms around yourself and do like a arcane explosion, it can do a pretty decent amount of damage to basically everything in the game. But it doesn't change the fact that that is the only thing it's got going for it, just outside of being able to stun very easy whenever you smack something. But being able to stun something for more than a second isn't exactly what's driving home it's not what drives home brings home the bacon. Logarius Wheel. People love this thing, and don't get me wrong. If you ask me, this thing has one of the highest amounts of potential in the game, but the sheer amount of work that you have to do in order to make this thing work the way you need it to, when pretty much everything else on this list is capable of just doing what you want right out the gate, I can't give it a high ranking. You're gonna want to build for the arcane side of things because it is geared entirely for that. All of its power is being put in the arcane side of things. And don't get me wrong, you want to balance it with the physical side of things too, because that is also a crazy amount of blunt damage. But outside of buffing itself with the arcane, which eats away at your health, and I get it, you can get it back by rallying it, but it doesn't change the fact that it's actually kind of a detriment if you're not good at dodging, which trust me, you attack with this thing, you ain't dodging shit. It is far and away the slowest weapon in the game, simply for how long it takes to come out of the attack animations. It is a Dark Souls colossal weapon in a game that requires you to move that fast constantly. A lot of good potential, a lot of good damage, but it doesn't perform like basically anything else in the game without a lot of work. And even then, if you put all that work in, it's not putting out the kind of performance that these are. So it's going in D, right above the Boomhammer. And the Boomhammer, I have to keep saying I don't like the Boomhammer. I don't know how many times I say it. It's just I don't think I can treat it harsh enough. Now that I continue to look at this tier list, it makes me have to kind of recategorize some of these things, because right now we're on Ludwig's Holy Blade, and we all know that's an S. We all know that is an S right out the gate, simply because of its transform attack. Not its transform attack, its transform mode. Simply because, oh my god, the amount of damage that it can put out. Something this powerful shouldn't be able to be buffed, but it can be. It doesn't care what you have to say about it. You are going to do 2,000 to 3,000 damage a swing, and you're gonna like it. It stuns super easy. It limb breaks. It builds beast blood like nothing else. You can put elemental paper on it. You can use the empty phantasm shell for arcane damage if you want it. And this thing is why I'm thinking I need to recategorize, because like, look, only so many things can be an S. I want to put no more than 3 weapons in S at a time. And I'm not making an extra category for this shit. So that's why I say Ludwig's Holy Blade stays in S, while the Chikage gets moved down to A, but it's a really, really good A, and it's interchangeable with an S if you really, really need it to be. Rakuyo, A, low A, lower than the church pick. Its transform mode is nothing to write home about. There's nothing special about it, but that transform mode, oh my god, you are even without the beast blood and even without all the extra papers, you are laying down so much damage. In exchange for that damage, it is not very stamina efficient, but the recovery is very low, so you can just spam attacks. You could dodge out of it easy. It doesn't build beast blood very well, but it doesn't change the fact that the amount of damage that you're doing is crazy. Especially for how much speed you got. Transform attack, don't bother using it. It's a cool spin. It's good for squishy enemies like the emissaries if you get surrounded by them, but don't bother using it. Performs very, very well. It doesn't perform like these ones do. So I stand by my decisions. Rakuyo, great weapon, low A. Reiterpallasch. I don't know what other people who make tier lists are talking about. This thing is an A. As where I put it, I'd probably put it above Beasthunter Saif. It does not build beast blood very well, but it doesn't change the fact that it's super stamina efficient. You can just spam attacks with it. You can buff it, and the amount of damage that it's capable of doing is insane. Now, its gun version isn't all that great. If you want to do something with a gun, you're probably just going to want to stick with an upgraded gun. But the sheer versatility is worth it. There's not really too much to say about it. It's just a good weapon. In addition, it's rapier version, or was it the unrapier version? The rapier version. Super high rally potential. You get your health back in just a couple of swings. I was so confused why it was giving me my health back so quickly. In addition to doing so much damage, but it said, "Don't question me." Great weapon. I would run the game with just this weapon again. Rifle spear. It sucks. Right to the bottom of D. Actually, I actually saw more results with it than the boom hammer. The rifle spear just has nothing going for it. It's already not laying down a whole lot of damage. 2, neither of its movesets are very good. Don't get me wrong. The rifle spear, the untransformed version can actually be quite good for kin. But there are weapons, as I've said in the video, in that previous video, there are weapons that don't really poke that are better at poking than this thing. The gun damage that it deals isn't very good. You can't buff it. It's just an all-around not great weapon. You could definitely run the game with it, but I don't think I'd ever want to again. We all knew this was coming. Is it my favorite weapon? No, but I cannot deny that it's the best weapon in the game. There's no question about that. It's got it all. It's fast. It's stamina efficient. You can buff it. It breaks limbs like crazy. The charge attacks come out quickly. It builds beast blood ridiculously fast with those transform attacks. Those transform attacks stun like crazy. There really is no weapon in the game that performs like the Saw Cleaver does. I know some people are going to be angry about that, about where it's placed and why they think that other weapons are better than this thing, but this thing just objectively does more damage than everything else. If you can't win with the Saw Cleaver, I really don't know what to tell you. Saw Spear, same problem. Now, so I know I said I was only going to put three weapons in the slot, but it's pretty much interchangeable with the Saw Cleaver. It does not hit as hard as the Saw Cleaver does, but where it lacks in damage, it makes up for in versatility. Both sides of the weapon, both modes, deal serration damage, so it's good against beasts no matter what, in addition to it also being a spear. So it's also good against the kin. Same thing, it can be buffed, fast, stamina efficient, builds beast blood, breaks limbs like crazy. If you want them to be interchangeable, they really, really can be. Because, don't get me wrong, they're not the same weapon. Despite the fact that they look similar, they are different enough to facilitate them being entirely different weapons. But they're totally interchangeable depending on your playstyle. Simon's Bowblade. A. I'd put it above Church Pick. Now, its bow form, which its selling point isn't all that great, but it doesn't change the fact that it's a great ranged option. It's not great for damage, but it's great that it's there in case you need it to be. Let's say you're not doing enough damage with your gun. The bow offers an actual charge feature to it, so you could potentially be doing even more damage. Now, because it's a right-handed weapon, you can't buff it up with bone marrow ash or anything. It doesn't change the fact that it's a great damage option that you can just use over and over. I found limited applications for it on my own playthrough because I like to be up close and personal. But when I went up against something that's vulnerable to ranged options like Amygdala, tore through her health like nobody's business. Great weapon, would use again. The Snake Driver, love this thing. Love it so much. That charge attack is something else. You know, when it finally comes out. It's the worst feeling in the world when you miss with it, and you most definitely will. But the times you hit it, it's just euphoric. It's one of those kind of weapons where I don't have anything bad to say about it, and despite me really, really loving the charge attack, I don't have a whole lot to say. I don't have a whole lot of good to say about it either. It's a decent weapon. I'll slap it in a C above Kirkhammer, but other than that, it just doesn't perform like the rest. The Threaded Cane, really, really good for the first few playthroughs up until like New Game Plus 2, where it really starts to fall off. At least to me. Don't get me wrong, I still love this thing, and where its placement, oh, I put it above Beasthunter Saif, right below Reiterpallasch. I know we got a lot of A-ranking weapons, but there's a lot of really good weapons in the game. This thing is great because it's the best of both worlds. It's untransformed mode. This is the regular cane version. It thrusts, so it's good against the kin, and it deals righteous damage, so it's good against those pesky Canehurst enemies. But in its transformed version, it's serrated, so it deals extra damage to beasts. It's one of those kind of weapons where it's like there's really no going wrong with it. There's nothing it can't do. It's not that it's bad. It just doesn't perform like some of the higher tiers on this list. Despite that, I'd pick the Threaded Canes nine times out of 10 if I was given my own choice. But it falls off after the first couple of playthroughs, at least for me personally. The Tonitrus, really, really cool weapon. I actually really love using this thing, but its applications are limited, especially for there's not a whole lot of enemies in the game that are weak to bolt. Don't get me wrong. For the enemies who are weak to bolt, this thing is unmatched. You know, the One Reborn, a lot of the kin, some of the great ones. This thing is just ripping through everything that's weak to it. But that blunt damage isn't really doing us any favors, and honestly, in all honesty, it doesn't build Beast Blood very well. And its extra lightning damage buff doesn't really last for very long. But other than that, I still love it. I still have a lot of respect for it, so I'd put it below Amygdalan Arm in the sea. Whirligig Saw, my personal favorite weapon. We all know that. It's everybody's personal favorite weapon. Let's not beat around the bush here. It's great. It's an S. Just an ungodly amount of damage. Its transformed version deals duration the whole time. The club version, well, the club version is okay. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not the best thing in the world, but the club version alone is more powerful than most of the weapons on this list. But when you got it transformed, there's nothing that could survive, be it beast, be it kin, be it great one. You're cooking to pizza with that thing all the time, and there's nothing that can stop you. It's not the fastest thing in the world, but it builds beast blows really, really fast. It lays the smack down on absolutely everything. It limb breaks like crazy, and it's just fun to pretend to be like a lawnmower. So there you have it. There's Noah's perfect tier list, and nobody better question it. All jokes aside, please keep in mind these are just my personal opinions of where I feel the weapons are placed in terms of power. Different people have different experiences with different weapons, regardless of how high the new game cycle is, and everything just performs differently for everybody. For me, these are how the weapons perform. I got respect for everything in one way or another except the boom hammer. I could even respect the Kos Parasite because it knows it sucks. The boom hammer tries to pretend it doesn't suck, and fuck you. There you have it. That's a tier list. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye bye.